Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us in tonight's edition of Viewpoint on the DBS television. We are going to be talking on issues related to catch-up classes, and to discuss about this topic we are having with us here in the studio. Jerome is a teacher, and it is probably not the first time that he is sharing this moment with us. Good evening to you, Mr. Kom, and thank you very much for being part of us.
Good evening, Vanessa. Good evening, televiewers. It's always a pleasure to be on your program in order to share our viewpoints to the general public, especially the youths of today, our pupils, our students who are leaders of tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Mange Venashus, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening to our viewers. When I say good evening, I think especially of a friend of mine. He's called Mr. Bilam Samson Jumbam. I want to extend special greetings to him and his family. He's out of Cameroon.
All right, let us take the first part of the show. That is the questions. Once more, you are welcome back. If you are just tuning in, you are watching Viewpoint. First question: revision classes organized in primary schools, is it pedagogically beneficial? Come, Jerome, what do you think about that? Yes or no?
Yes, madam, if the context is well understood.
Yes. Mange Venashus?
No, Vanessa, it's not.
No, it is not. And is there anyone to blame in the educational chain?
Yes, Vanessa.
Venashus, if you said no, so should anyone be blamed?
Yes.
Yes. Coming up next, let us have the debate. Revision classes organized in primary schools, is it pedagogically beneficial? Jerome, why do you think that yes, it is beneficial?
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Revision classes, which we term it remediation classes, could be very, very beneficial to the learner, the student, or the pupils if the context of such remediation is well understood and purposeful. First of all, before we indulge into remediation or revision classes in the primary school especially, is always when the diagnostic evaluation which takes place at the beginning of a course, a program, a term, or a lesson is being done, and then some learning difficulties identified in the learners are being noted. When these learning difficulties, for example, dyslexia, dysgraphia, and other children with other learning disability, they are being noted, then remediation is now called for in order to arrest these difficulties. Coming back to the word remediation, it means rearranging, restoring, or reorganizing, fitting in what has been missing on that particular student. For example, a child who has the problem of dyslexia, which means a child who cannot read properly. He has reading difficulties. Now, after the normal lessons or classes, remediation classes are very proper for this kind of a student, as it will permit him to catch up and be able to read. It goes same with dysgraphia, that is kids who have difficulties in writing. No matter how you read them, they have a very poor or bad handwriting. With remediation, that is working now on a one-on-one basis, it will enable the stuff to be penetrating, and the child will assimilate and master what is being done, because you have reduced the enrollment size and you are now working on a one-on-one basis. This makes remediation to have its place, and it is important because the objective of every lesson, which we call today the learning outcome, is stated at the beginning of every lesson. And then if at the end of the lesson all the students do not attain this objective, remediation is called for, because educational objectives are supposed to be achieved if all the learners are up to task. You said at the end of the lesson, my children should be able to calculate B's and exchange. End of the lesson, you mark the books, you evaluate, you discover that 3/4 has attained your objective. You're not going to throw away this 1/4. You're going to organize remedial classes for them in order to enable your objectives to be achieved. It also comes in the case of Cameroon, where we have what we call inclusive education, where all children of all educational background, learning difficulties are supposed to school and learn together. For example, we have children who may have what we call lifting children. I don't want to call it mentally disabled children. They are being mixed with normal children who are high achievers. These children who have these lifting problems need to be organized remedial classes, because they are not unlike the rest of the other children. In this place now, remediation has its own place, because in a classroom setting, we have 3 kinds of students. We have very high achievers who understand everything.
Those are the fast learners.
Yes, the fast learners. And then we have average achievers who need a little support or a push from the teacher. And then we have the low achievers who really need the total support. These are the people who are in dire need of remediation, because on their own they cannot actually push it and realize the objective we are expecting. And then now, remediation may be very, very detrimental if it is not understood. For instance, you organize remedial classes. You just teach everything without identifying the difficulty of the child in question. It becomes a waste of time to some children. For example, you are repeating something again and again to a child who had 10 on 10 on mathematics, or who understood the concept and master the competence of that particular domain. You'll be wasting that child's time, because you said, okay, today everybody is going to remain back for extra classes. And without identifying the learning difficulties, because we have different potentials, different abilities, different skills. Some are very good at craft work, some are good at mental activities, and some are very good at analyzing historians. So if you identify my child has a problem with what? Mental activities, mathematics, you're going to focus on that area in order to arrest it. Otherwise, you will be killing the child's skill. What is happening in most of our schools today? We like chew everything and give the child to swallow. You handicap the child. That is why some children stay at the level of the university, 3rd year. I mean, they still have some difficulties, because all through their lives, they had what we call, home tutors who assisted them in areas where they could put in their own personal effort and come up to the desired standards. So remediation, if well understood, is of greater importance to pedagogy, because the educational stakeholders, that is the school administration, the parent and the government, they will all benefit, because when these objectives are achieved in the classroom scene, since we're talking of competence now, it will be felt in the society.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kumbo, for that analysis. Mange Venashus, catch-up classes, or probably revision classes, or remediation, or rearranging some of these students that are not having that high IQ to acquire the knowledge that is being taught normally in class. They have to go for catch-up classes, and yet you think that pedagogically is not beneficial still?
Vanessa, I still share that opinion, that it is not pedagogically beneficial. When I listen to Mr. Kum in his expose, I call it a pedagogical expose. He's outlining what is supposed to be. But the reality on the ground, teachers who are watching at us now, they would realize that that is not what happens. What happens is, I am the teacher in this class, and I organize remedial classes for those who pay. I don't organize it for those who need to be brought up to the level. The name is actually remedial classes, to remediate a situation that was, you know, a learning situation that the exercise did not go through. But what we have on the ground is far from it. It has been completely abused. One, you see, actually at the beginning of the year, like Mr. Kum was saying, they carry out a diagnostic evaluation to determine the level of the children. Then remedial classes are organized. They call it catch-up classes. Some call it extra classes. That is the situation here. But you will understand that, if I can ask a question, those who attend this remedial classes, for teachers who are looking at us, they would realize that those who attend them are those who pass. Those are the bright students. Those are the bright students. Because teachers do not give in to poor students who don't have money to pay for these classes, because if you don't pay, you don't attend. Mr. Kum is explaining a normal pedagogical process that is supposed to be, which means when you teach a class, at the end of that class, when you evaluate and discover that there are poor learners, slow learners, those who could not really grasp the matter, the material, you isolate them after class and focus on them one-on-one so as to drive home the message. How many teachers do that? How many teachers, especially in Douala, do that? Vanessa, we are answering a question about the primary sector. And I must confess that it was only here in this part of the country that I came here to even hear about extra classes. What do you mean by extra classes? In primary school, my child came back the other day, it was Monday, and told me that our teacher said that we have to take part in evening classes. I said, evening classes? In class 2, eh? Evening classes for what? He said, no, classes in school. You know, after school, children remain in class again and are studying. Well, I did not want to go in to find out when the diagnostic evaluation would have been made. But the situation here is, at primary school, you are already organizing remedial classes. Are you not killing the intelligence of that child? Mr. Kume is saying we are giving way so that the child should not have that ability to be able to, you know, work out his brain. In where I come from, in the northwest, where I grew, I knew that you go to school and we close at 2 o'clock. That is all. We wait for the next day. This thing that you come to class again and study is for what? We did not have it. Once we are doing it, Mr. Kumse, he cited it. Once we are doing it, we are telling the child that you cannot survive on your own. In primary school, you want to carry out catch-up classes, extra classes. It has no goal in this part of the country, because the goal is not pedagogically, as he highlighted. The goal is threefold. One, teachers want money. They are paid. Vanessa, I will tell you, teachers know that once you see a well-to-do parent, his children always have catch-up classes. It is not because the children are dull. No, it is because the children, the money will be paid. Two, you will see teachers will propose to parents that your child needs classes. That is genuine. That's a genuine case. Your child needs catch-up classes. And if the parent has no money, we forget about the child. And then another reality, which teachers may not want that I should highlight it here, is that all those who participate in remedial classes, they must pass to justify the money that is paid. Because if the child is taught in class normal hours and remedial classes, and the third child still fails, the problem is with the teacher. And when parents refuse to pay for that remedial classes, that child risks failing. Teachers know what I'm talking about. The child risks failing exams. Now, another reason is, parents, those of us who are parents, we run away from our responsibility. The child would go to school from morning till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and we extend the period, maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock before we come back, because we are afraid of our responsibility. It is not because it is beneficial. It is beneficial pedagogically to that child. No. Most parents look at it as a way to keep children, to occupy children before they come back. That is what is happening in this part of the country. Because I tend to ask, children from the time I was going to school and this one, are they different? Children in that part of the country, because up in that other part of the country, how many parents even succeed in paying the school fees completely before having another money of paying for extra classes? Are they different children from the ones here? Are they not tested in the same national exams? What is the difference? So I think that it is the culture where we are that is beneficial. And when I talk of it, I say in primary school, it is not at all. It doesn't help, because you prove to the child that that child is a weak-minded individual. That child cannot stand on his own. So I would rather think that parents should be able allow the child to study within the normal academic, within the normal hours of studies. Pedagogic or pedagogues were not fooled to say that a child needs to study between the morning and the hours they close. That child needs rest. You don't task the child's mind after normal classroom period. After that, they come in again for extra classes. The child is hungry. The child is tired in the midst of this heat, and you expect the child to study. Beneficially speaking, it is not. And I think that, like Mr. Kum was saying, the impact is in the long term. I associate it with whole day classes. I always say it. My children don't participate in that thing called whole day classes, because pedagogically speaking, that is the period that the child should have some rest away from book work and do something different. I prefer to send them in a mechanics garage, send them in a tailoring workshop, send them in a carpentry workshop. They should try themselves into something else, not book work again. All right, so Mangavenashus, what do you think of those parents who hire teachers to teach their children back at home? It is the same thing, Vanessa. It is the same thing. The impact is the same. That child can survive in a normal pedagogic period, in a normal hours in class. That child can survive. It is because we think that it is by so adding the child will pass. By so adding, we are instead killing the child's initiative to study. Why should I study to learn how to struggle to know how to read, when I know that in class, when the teacher will do it, and then I come back at home, I have another teacher who will come and work on the same thing. And there's another reality that comes with this. The teacher who teaches at home, who is not the classroom teacher, there's always been contradiction. My teacher said this, and now you are saying this at home. You see that there is some conflict. There are two different ways, two different individuals. They have two different methods of teaching. The teacher in school is teaching using his own method, and the home teacher comes using his own method. The child is caught up in it. Probably it's the same as when a parent tells his child that no, I think that maybe this is calm, not calm. The child said no. My teacher said in class that no, it is calm, not calm. Exactly. That is the impact, Vanessa. So I think that if we parents can trust our teachers in school, the normal working hours, I think that our children can cope. Let us not tell these children that they are weak-minded individuals, that they cannot cope. Because, like he's saying, when they will finally get into the university, would they have the home teachers to come and continue? Those lapses will still be felt. And that is why we have university graduates. They know. They are listening to us this evening. Who to write an application in English? Vanessa, you tend to doubt what type of universities we have. In as much as we are adding, issues like this remedial teaching that we never even had it, the quality of education is dropping. Why is it dropping? Because we have weak-minded students, weak-minded right from the primary school, from the base. You already have a support from the base. No, when you reach the university now, what are we going to give you? Thank you very much, Mangavenashus. In our second question, is there anyone to blame in the educational chain as regards to these revision classes and the pedagogical benefits or known benefits, as Mangavenashus do say? And Kumjerum, you think that there is someone to be blamed? So who should be blamed then? Is it the teachers? Is it the parents? Is it the school administrators? Or who should be actually blamed?
Yes, my primary blame as far as this educational chain is concerned is always thrown back to the government bench, curriculum planners and designers. These are the chief people to be blamed in the chain of education. Now look at the new curriculum that was introduced in Cameroon in 2018. Vanessa, I will outrightly tell you that the curriculum was introduced, but valuable didactic materials teaching it, and then even resource books are not in line with this curriculum, because now we're not working pay the objectives, we're working pay competence. And if we're working per competence, we must be able to have the materials to test the competence, the skills that our learners have acquired. They just picked this curriculum, put it into the system, and teachers are never invited, except I'm quote wrong, when this curriculum is being planned, designed, and put into practice. They consider teachers to be what? Like people would simply apply the policies of education. They don't take part in the planning, which is a handicap, because it is the teacher that faces the reality in the field. So the main people to be blamed: one, curriculum planners and designers; two, the government, in the case of government schools, and the proprietors, because these are the stakeholders in the educational sector. The private educational system, according to me, is to like complement the public the public system or the government school system. So it should be upgraded. But to my own greatest dismay, you go to some of these private schools, because it is capital and interest or profit oriented, they even feel very reluctant to provide basic didactic material. I would tell you, even right up to now, you're teaching about toilet or latrine in schools. It will be difficult for some proprietors, because like the didactic materials you normally have to teach, you carry the children to the toilet, let them do it to acquire the competence. It is not there. I always come back to the aspect of what? Agriculture. Some schools, as I call them, they are kitchens, and the government is what we say sanfu. They don't care about it. How do you expect a school in a 100-meter square of land? Where would they have a small place for even a hanging garden? That if we talk of agriculture, we want to talk of maybe seed germination, just at that basic level, not talking of maybe horticulture or whatever. Where would they do it? It will remain in theory. It means we have not changed anything. The things are there that have been put. But in reality, if the present curriculum of Cameroon was being applied, resources being provided to the curriculum implementers, we are going to produce the finest and the best student who would change Cameroon for good. Now we are still working on theory. I've just taken an example. Mr. Director, I am the class 5 teacher. I'm teaching latrine. Please, I will need a detergent, I will need a brush, I will need hand gloves to demonstrate, maybe to sample some students who would do it. It will tell you that go and provide your didactic material yourself. You, with your small salary of maybe 60, 70,000, you take the small salary, you go and buy didactic material. You carry out that project next month, because every month, and according to the new curriculum, you're supposed to come out with a project, because we want the children to acquire the skills, the competence, and the abilities. So the chief people we have to blame here are what? The school proprietors, and the government is even the number one. Because the government schools around here, they just look as if they are not schools.
All right. Thank you very much, Kumchero. Mange and Ashushi equally think that some people should be blamed. So who are those?
Yes, Vanessa, I had 4 actors whom I said are responsible for, or should be blamed for this situation that we have in Cameroon. I was looking at schools from a different perspective. You know, schools have this, especially in the private sector, there is this success syndrome that we have in schools in Cameroon, where each school is practically the best school. Each school is just that place where they produce 100%, and they don't teach children to understand or to know. They teach children to pass, which means everything is done to make sure that in first school living they score 100%. That's why they will write it boldly at the gate during the opening,
school reopening,
or during GCE, because they measure. People believe that they measure the output of their learning through those performances. No, it is what the children acquire. It is not what, because in real essence, examination has proven not to be the real test of knowledge. Actually. Now, when I look at school authorities, especially in the private sector, I was saying that I had a situation here where a son of a proprietor was in a school. This child was almost among the first 3 students. It was his father's school. The child studied from class 1 to class 6. He was among the first 3 students. Wrote the common entrance. Could not even pass in Lisby. Failed the common entrance. That was his first test of public exams. Which means teachers were awarding marks to please the parent, to please the proprietor, not because the child merited it. And this was this child was among those students who have been attending, extra classes throughout their life in primary school. Now, another issue is teachers are not well paid in private, especially in the private sector. They must, make both ends met by these extra classes. I was saying that extra classes are about 5,000 per child. And you see that somebody has about a month. Somebody has about 20 children in front of him, times 5,000. So salary means nothing. So that's when you agree on 40,000, 50,000. We tend to ask questions.
With the notion that you tax a parent's revision fee.
Of course. We tend to ask questions. How would this teacher survive in a city like Douala with 50,000 francs? You need to pay rent. You have a family, and then take care of yourself, eat, then transportation to school. How would you survive with 50,000 francs? So when you put this together, you see that the aim is, their target has always been these extra classes. In schools where extra classes have been up, because I know of some schools that they abolish extra classes. They don't want it. They don't want it. You see, teachers can die because this is actually blocking them from exercising. For them, that's why I think that they are responsible.
Right.
Because teachers need to, to work for the sake of the work, to ameliorate the standard of the children, like Mr. Kum was saying, not because of money. Now, teachers on their own parts also, because of that money, they fake, I use the word fake, because they tell parents that this child needs extra classes. They don't say it to a poor parent, they say it to a parent whom they judge that, no, this parent can pay. Yes, because you see an old woman who comes to school, and you want the woman to pay extra 5,000 each month. The woman will not have it. Then I look at the point of parents. Parents are to be blamed, because parents prove to the children that you cannot succeed once you study only within the normal working period. And that's what I've been struggling to let my children know, that if you don't, and I still insist on them, if you fail, you come and meet me in the house.
Probably they're watching
yes,
at this particular moment.
If you fail, you come and meet me in the house, but then you have to study within the normal working hours. You don't have extra classes. In primary school, when you get secondary school, then we'll add the extra hours. When you get to university, you obviously stay in school, because you cannot even survive.
You do receipts.
Receipt, in fact, in all the subjects. So
thank you very much, man.
We parents, we are blamed because we prove to these children that they are not able to withstand, the weight of education, which something, naturally speaking, they can do it, Vanessa.
All right, thank you very much, Mange Venantius, and Mr. Kuma. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. It's always a pleasure, and we wish that the educational stakeholders, they take appropriate measures in order to make our learners happier and successful at the end of the day, so much so that they can be of value and help to this nation. Let's move from theory to practical. Thank you.
Let's move from theory to practicals. That brings us to the end of this edition of Viewpoint. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. See you tomorrow, God willing. Take the rendezvous, and probably we'll be there. Goodbye.